Good evening and welcome to Moving Forward, a production of the Bay and Grantstown Advancement Association. This program is primarily concerned about identifying obstacles in the progress of our nation. And with the assistance of all of you, some in studio and others of you out there, we seek to address these obstacles with a view to, if not entirely removing them, certainly to reducing them so that this nation, like the church, could roll on. This evening we are very happy to have a panel of individuals who will help us to discuss what is becoming very, very apparent with each passing day, that our young people are not stepping in as appropriately as they should to pick up the mantle. Not placing blame anywhere, we're just going to discuss it. Because that disconnect seemed to be presenting a lot of challenges to our nation. We seem to be in a position where when the present generation moves off the scene for whatever reason, there's a lot of scrambling because there's not that smooth transfer. And that is what we are going to address today. And for a dramatic title, we're going to title it The State of Our Youth, the State of Our Children. What is happening? What do we need to do to ensure that the next generation is able to take this nation forward? And our panel this evening to assist us in discussing that includes our dear pastor, Pastor Ed Dorsett of the East Street Gospel Chapel, and Mrs. Donnalee Bowe, and Mr. Fred Munnings, our perennial guests, almost our co-hosts. And we really want to have a freewheeling discussion, sharing our opinions, because it is such a wide-ranging topic. And of course, it's very subjective because everybody has their own opinion. But we want to start in the home, because that is where everything begins. That is the foundation of the society. And what you see in the society is just a microcosm of what's happening in the home. Panel, how can we better prepare our children to not just take over this nation, but lead it to higher heights? Anybody?
First of all, thank you very much, Reverend Moss, for inviting me to be on this esteemed panel, these persons who I know very well. And it's a privilege to have my input on the subject matter tonight. The country, as I see it, as far as the family is concerned, is in crisis. We're in crisis mode. We have, as we all know, children raising children. In the area I frequent and where my church, the East Street Gospel Chapel, is, we see little children being left behind by the parents to take care of the home. And they go early in the morning to work and return late at the evening, and they have to prepare breakfast, they have to do their chores, they have to drop one of the children to school, collect them after school, because all this time the parents are nowhere to be found. And so we have this crisis, I feel, in our country because of the neglect and abandonment. It's almost like they're being abandoned for an extended period of time. And if we don't correct that, I think we're already in crisis. So it's going to get worse.
And Reverend Moss, thank you for having me here this evening. Because the family is in crisis, then it passes on to the school. So we know from the recent seminar we just held and the many ones we've done over the years, we have heard all of the reports of the crisis in the schools. And so if this problem keeps passing on from one set of institution to the next, then it goes on to the church and to the community. And so as a whole, our nation is in trouble from the reports we are getting. And so we are here really to talk about the subventions and what we as a community can do to save our children who are the future of this nation.
Like the other panelist, Dr. C.B. Moss, it's always a pleasure for me to be with you to talk about matters of national importance. And this one this evening is truly the fundamental topic of national development and importance, because the greatest resource of any nation is its people. And the greatest future of any nation are our children. When we look at it fundamentally, and going back to basics, I always start from this position, and I can only speak of which I know and have experienced. The nuclear family as we know it in our country was never there. Mother, father, children in the same family for the most part. But what we did have is what we call the extended family. We come from a society where families lived in the same area or even in the same yard as we know it. There'd be 3 or 4 houses on the same property, and grandmother and mother and auntie and cousins all lived in these communities when we had neighborhoods. Today, fast forward 2018, we have lost our neighborhoods.
Yes.
I remember vividly as a boy, you walk through your neighborhood and every other house there was a grandmother or a lady or a grandfather sitting on the porch. We don't sit on the porches anymore.
Yes.
And when you pass that house, you would have to say good afternoon, good evening, Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so. And if you didn't, by the time as you got to your house, the word was already there that you did not do what you were supposed to have done in the neighborhood. So our neighborhoods have been depleted. And as a result of our families being depleted, we don't have the extended families anymore, because as Pastor said, you have grandmothers and grandfathers now who are in their 30s. Which means that the child is having babies at the age of 12 and 13-year-old, trying to raise children with no supervision. At least back in the day, if you had that kind of situation, the extended family was there to teach them how to do certain things and how to bring up that child. Now you have the child essentially raising themselves, or even being raised by the television or the smartphone. And sometimes the phone is smarter than the user of the phone. And so we have crises in our hands, because if you look about our children today, if you pass around this time in the late afternoon, early evenings when schools are getting out, and just listen to the conversation of our young people, you would be amazed. And you know, at one time you say, well, you expect young boys to act a certain way, but now we have our young girls even acting worse than some of the boys. So the subject is very important. And where do we start? We start with the parents. Because it is the parents who are responsible for the upbringing of those children. You can't start with the children. You got to start with the parents. And so if the parents are not doing what they're supposed to do, it's almost unlikely that the child will do what it is supposed to do, or they are supposed to do, the children, unless they run across a good teacher, unless they run across a good pastor or community builder. They're going to be led astray, and as they are led astray, they will form themselves into a sanctuary, what we now call gangs, and you have what we have today.
Well, all of you have laid a very strong foundation to indict the home, really.
That's what it is.
However, I, over the years, have been a little wary of jumping on the bandwagon to condemn the home, particularly since you hear this a lot coming from our national leaders. Every time you talk about problems, oh, it's the home, it's the home, it's the home. And while fundamentally that's true, but let's drill down a bit and see what is influencing this degradation of the home or the family life. There are lots of influences that are external to the home. A lot of that has to do with the attitude of the society. Back in the day, you all were referring to, the society kept and maintained equilibrium in the home, in the family. Like Freddie said, you did this, and before you got home, your parents were informed, and so you knew what was going to happen. The home has been under tremendous pressure, in my opinion, from external factors, starting with the television, the satellites, and now these advanced electronic equipment. Also, the home is not receiving the kind of attention from the wider society.
Support.
Children are having children. Where's the remedial action? I mean, strong action. Where's the safety net for those homes that are suffering? For instance, we have organizations like our Baintown organization that's involved in parental training, because a lot of our parents don't know how to be parents. But we're talking about, what, 30, 40 persons at a time. This should be a wholesale approach. It should almost be mandatory. Once you cross a threshold, the parents should be given that training. And then you have the question of economics. You have the question of economics. You cannot ignore that. Then you have the question of decisions made by the political and economic directorate. For example, enticing people to leave these communities. The extended families are sucked away into this new development, that new development, ostensibly to give a greater economic and social benefit, but it weakened the family, it weakened the community. So, while we must agree that the home is where the problem is, but we must understand the society is still responsible. Do we have the safety nets?
Well, okay, sorry. In the church, we find ourselves, as you just suggested, being a safety net for a lot of people who fall through the cracks. A lot of little children don't have mommy, daddy. They probably live with tita or stepfather, but they need something else. They need someone who can really care for them. And in our church, we have youth groups. We have programs, preschool. We have sorts of programs that can affect these children's lives. And most of all, we have to go into the homes as youth leaders to find out what's going on. A lot of people come to church, and a lot of times, if you don't go to their home, you wouldn't know why they act the way they act when they come to church. They go back, for example, all of us have air-conditioned churches. They come to an air-conditioned church, and everything is there, running water, all these amenities, and they go home, that's not there. And so it's disparity between where they live and where they come out to fellowship. I think that's important for us as pastors to find out more about our people who come to our churches, because they live in a totally different world from the one we create at church. And I think it's an important thing. It's a role that we are playing right now. I mean, every day we come out of church, I find my way through the corner to find out how's this child doing, because they leave church, praise and worship and all these sort of things that we promote, but at home it's a totally different situation. And that's where we feel as pastors and youth workers we need to do more. As a matter of fact, it was done for us as boys when we attended 14 Bahamas Boys Brigade, Captain Fernley Palmer, Arthur Pete, these persons took time with us.
That's the point. So my next question, do we have adequate infrastructure in the society to support the homes? For instance, you talk about Boys Brigade. That's supplemented the home.
Oh, yeah.
Where are the truant officers when the kids don't go to school?
I don't
Where are the health officers that would come around and inspect and ensure? See, these are infrastructural things that used to be there.
Right.
That's not there now.
I don't see them.
And that is contributing to the present state of affairs. Address that, Freddie.
The basic foundation of what you just described, CB, that structure, see, we don't need all this highfalutin amenities to give us the basic fundamentals, principles of self-respect. My grandmother, with whom I grew up, had to drop out of school at the age of 14 to take care of her siblings. There were 6 of them. But she taught us the principles and the respect of self. We didn't have any of the amenities of the good pastor. He's a modern day pastor.
Praise the Lord.
Are you kidding?
Praise the Lord. Push on window.
But we had a foundation of principle, respect and manners, respect of authority, whether it was the teacher, the policeman, the pastor, the teacher. If you go to school and teacher says something in school, and you go home and somebody says something different, no, teacher say. My point is simply this. We've moved away from the fundamental, basic principles of teaching our children respect. If you teach a child in the way that they should go, I'm treading on you gentlemen's territory now.
Go ahead, brother.
I can't quote the scripture like you. But the principle says, you bend them while they are young, because when they get old and that bar get hard, you can't bend them anymore. Therein lies the problem. Who is bending our children? If the parents are not there, the grandparents are not there, they have no respect for teacher, policeman, or anybody else. I remember, you mentioned the truant officer. The truant officer, for those who don't know, would be this gentleman, we used to call him Mr. Mackey. He driving around in khaki pants with his pants, with the clip on the bicycle, with the clip on his pants so it wouldn't get catch in the chain. And he just riding around the neighborhood. Well, if you spot Mr. Mackey about a block down the road,
You better go run good.
you gone.
He running behind you.
Bush crack.
You ain't want him to find you. But today, the brother sitting on the block, man, with the spliff in the hand and the policeman driving by. Where is the respect? That is the fundamental basics of the principles of which we speak.
You're right, but you know, I always like to look a little below the surface. That's clearly
I say go deep. Go as deep as you want.
Respect.
Yes.
And principle.
That is correct.
But wait a minute. Many parents are finding their effort to teach respect and principle is being undermined by the standards that exist around them. You should don't lose sight of this. No. If you have a child, and you can tell the child, do this, do that, but if everywhere around there's something opposite being taught, it makes it more difficult. I am not saying it's not possible.
No question. No question.
Makes it more difficult.
No question. But the era of which I speak, CB, that was under the most oppressive government in the history of our country.
Sometimes oppression.
It forces you.
Exactly.
Slavery.
Exactly.
It's another example of the oppression that forces you to become strong and have discipline.
Sometimes when you have too much freedom.
That's my point.
When you have too much freedom, too much liberty.
Well, see, when we were under the oppressors,
we are still under oppression.
In order to survive, you had to have these basic principles.
Yeah, but Freddie, we are still under oppression.
See,
wait, no. Let me make this point. Let me make this point. That oppression, those oppressors were easier to deal with. You know why? Because they were easily identifiable. You knew who they were. You knew what it was. But now the oppressors look like us. I'm not speaking only in image, but the oppressors now are amongst us.
Yeah.
The oppressors were not really in our churches. So we had that unity against that oppression. But now the oppressors are in our churches, in our schools, in our homes, in our communities. So that makes it more difficult.
Reverend Dr. C.B. Moss. But we allowed them, we gave them the strength. We gave them the power. We have forgotten who we are, because it was us who created the environment for them to become who they are.
And then they took control.
No, we gave them the control, and we're still allowing them.
Hold
to
that point,
control
Freddie.
us.
We have a quick break. Gotta get a quick
question
break
is-
in here. Gotta get a quick break in here.
We become dependent.
And then we're gonna come back and we're gonna let Freddie finish his thought, and then we go to you, Donnalee. Don't go away, folks. And I like it when it gets hot. Yeah, I like it when it gets hot, because this is so serious.
Yeah.
You must ruffle some feathers.
The question is,
You see,
where did we go
break in.
wrong?
You know,
Don't be
our
afraid.
position in this society is everybody want to be on such
Smooth
good
it
terms with
over.
everybody.
Politically
Hold your thought. We're gonna be right back.
Only love can save us now. Only love